If you're not familiar with me, my name is Greg Helbeck. I've been a full-time real estate entrepreneur now for almost a decade. All the information you're going to learn on this podcast is not regurgitated theory out of a book. So if you do get value, if you could do me a favor, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and like the video. It would really mean a lot to me. And that's how we grow the show on a weekly basis. So this is 28 Lindberg Part 1. And the reason I'm making a Part 1 is because we bought the house, we renovated the house, and we are in the process of selling the house. So once we sell the house, I can do a Part 2 video to let you know the actual numbers. So how did I find this house? Relationships, JV partners. This has been a great channel for us, is other investors coming to our company and bringing deals to the table in exchange for money or resources or buyers or whatever the case. And this one, my good friend Nick Martucci brought it to me. He said, hey, I got this seller. I think the seller originally found Nick online on a Google ad or something like that. And Nick was like, hey man, let's partner on this thing. This address was 28 Lindberg in Wurtsboro, New York. So anyway, I looked at the deal, I ran the numbers, and I said, this isn't a home run, but it can certainly be a base hit. It looks like this house probably would sell in reasonable condition for about $300,000. The seller needed to sell because they were buying another house, a very typical situation we see. They'd had no time to wait, and their home needed some work. This is where the deal was a little tight, and hopefully it will result in a decent profit. They wanted 230. We ended up getting them down to 226,500. So if you look at that deal from a gross margin perspective, you're essentially buying it for 225,000 and you're forecasting to sell it for 300,000. So there's a 75K margin for some sort of a net profit to be made. It's going to depend on how much work has to go into the house. Is it really going to sell for 300? Maybe it sells for less. Maybe it sells for more. What type of work do we have to put in to get it to that number? Skinny deal. But at the end of the day, not all deals are going to be home runs. Base hits win the baseball game, as I say. After looking at the pictures, I'm like, okay, we could probably put 10 to 15 grand in this thing and make it really clean, nice, attractive to buyers, and throw it on the market for $299. Hopefully at that price, it would bid up a little bit and we can sell it for more. We're expecting to sell it for 300, but we're also assuming it could sell for a little bit more depending on a couple variables. So ended up buying the house. It was a real pain in the ass to close because this was in New York. If you're not familiar with New York, every seller has an attorney. Seller's attorney was a knucklehead and he was like threatening us for no reason. We did nothing wrong. We complied with the contract. But they had the wrong expectations. They thought they were going to close this thing in a week, which is impossible in New York. So we ended up closing 3.5 or 4 weeks after we signed a contract. And I think we had 6 weeks to close. So we still closed early. The way I funded the deal was I used a hard money loan from Kiavi. And because I'm part of Investor Fuel, and if you're interested in Investor Fuel, go to investorfuel.com and say my name and they might be able to hook you up. So anyway, because I'm part of Investor Fuel, Kiavi actually funds 100% of investor purchases, assuming it's bought at the right number. So Kiavi ran the numbers. They liked the deal. They said, Greg, we'll give you 100% of the purchase price. They gave me a loan for $226,500, the entire thing. Now, I still had to come to the table with some cash because they charge points and they had some closing costs. So I think all in, I was out like $12,000 to close this house, which is pretty cool because I bought a house for $226,000. I only had to come up with 12 grand. Not bad, better than a sharp stick in the eye. And in terms of the renovation, we did a very light renovation. It was about $13,000. It was basically some paint, trim work, just the odds and ends. So ended up $13,500 in that property. And now we have it on the market to hopefully sell for 299 grand. I believe we had a full price offer already, but it was some shitty terms. Apparently, we're getting a cash offer full price either today or tomorrow. So we're going to probably ride it out a little bit longer and see what other offers come in. Hopefully, we can get an offer coming in at 310, 315, maybe 320 if we're lucky. So that is where the deal is at. I'm going to obviously do a part 2 and tell you what we ended up selling it for and how much we ended up netting and this, that, and the other. But what are some lessons you can learn from this part 1 video that can help you in your business? Now, the first lesson is simple. Do deals with your competition. I have mentioned this on many of my videos before. The business is much more enjoyable when you can work with your competition, not against them, right? There are going to be times where you compete with people and someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. But most of the time, when you get the same lead as somebody else and you know them, or someone else needs something that they don't have that you have, in this case, the knowledge, and I brought the capital in this case, you can partner up with your competition and you can both make money together. Number 1, work with your competition. Lesson number 2, base hits win the ball game, right? Not every deal is going to be a home run. If I had my druthers, I would love to buy this house for $180,000 or $200,000, but that wasn't going to work for the seller. And fortunately, his number he needed and the profit on the deal still line up to where we can make a small but reasonable profit. And the way I look at it, if it's like I'm getting half of the profit and I didn't have to go out and market for that seller. The deal literally came to me on a silver platter. All I had to do was put the money down to buy it. So even if I end up making 15,000 or 10,000, it's literally a free $10,000 from my perspective because I didn't have to market for that deal and talk to that seller. As they say, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Base hits win the game. Not every deal is going to be a home run. And then the third lesson here, and this is a key lesson, I've made this before, I want to make it again. When you're doing properties and you're doing house flips, whether they're full renovations or they're clean out and list situations like this one, you don't need to go hard in the paint, pun intended, on a rehab, because a lot of the times the comparable sales you're going to look at to determine what your house is going to sell for, or your building, depending on what you're doing, a lot of the comparables are as is dated properties, right? There's not a lot of rehab product on the market at any given time. So the reason I'm saying this is you don't need to do these big rehabs to make the margins you want to make. You can literally look at the comps and say, okay, houses in fair condition are selling for 300. I think if I put 10 into this property or 15 into this property, I can get it to that number. Therefore, I don't need to do a big rehab to make pretty much the same profit. If we were to rehab this house, we probably would have ultimately made less. And obviously, we'll see when it actually closes. But understand this. What's the minimum you can put into a property to get fair market value? Because when you start doing big rehabs and taking walls out and pulling permits, it just turns into a construction debacle. So look at your properties and see if you can just clean them out, paint them and polish them up, and then throw them on the market and make a similar margin, if not more. Anyway, that's 28 Lindberg Part 1. If you got value, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, write a comment. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, do me a favor and subscribe to the podcast and share it on social media. And if you're in New York like this one, or Seattle, where I live, San Diego, Reno, or Delaware, where I invest also, you have a property you want to wholesale to me, I will buy it if the numbers make sense. Or if you want to JV wholesale it or JV flip it, send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, or follow me on Instagram and send me a direct message at grego37. I'll see you on the next video.